Hello and welcome, my name is Viktor and you're watching the Nordic Takedown. Today, we're examining the State of Sabine. Her reign, it would seem like, is probably far from an end. Perhaps God did save this queen, yet a while longer. Before we get into all that though, I've got to tell you how glad I am that you're watching our channel. We, the Nordic Takedown, are a weekly podcast with ever new episodes dropping Thursdays on all platforms where you find podcasts, including, of course, here on YouTube, where you will also find us streaming all the best tournaments in the Nordic countries, as well as making video content on all things Star Wars Unlimited. For us, it's all about the community, which makes our Discord a huge priority. Here, you can engage with us as well as an ever-growing swarm of wonderful people who all love the game. Join us in any and all of these ways as best suits you. We love to have you. Well, let's crack on, shan't we?
Nothing's even close as good as Sabine. Just do the raw math. It'll never add up. It's the ping, right? It's always the ping. Sabine can ping on turn 1. That's 1 damage. 2 damage on turn 2. 3 damage on turn 3, deploy and do 3 damage. That's 6 damage from a leader. No other leader can achieve that amount of damage. I'd be happy to get off of Sabine, but it's just too good.
That is Ryan Warner of Rebel Resource, probably the most prolific advocate for the yellow Sabine deck, and just generally recognized as an amazing Sabine player. I too have been playing Sabine a lot, all the way back since set 1, when my testing partners first showed me the power level of the deck and how much fun it was to play. I really fell in love with the deck though in set 2, when I could gear it slightly more to the mid game, which suits me. I had some success, but then in the Copenhagen PQ I washed out completely. I had prepared so much to face a lot of Bobas, and I was really ready for that matchup, and then I went there. Didn't see a single Boba, washed out, like I said, 1 and 3 against Danish homebrews and dropped. Yeah, that's that. Went home, hoped to get set 3 kicking off with a lot of new exciting cards for Sabine, but no such cards did materialize. What we did get though was this new leader, you might have heard of him, Jango. And my early testing was really horrific against that leader. So I put baby in the corner and looked elsewhere for all of set 3. Well now, set 4 has arrived and it seemed to be bringing some new shiny toys for the deck. And I can't lie, I've been missing her. I got in touch with some great Sabine players to see if perhaps it's time for me to return to my roots. So, I'm here at our locals Prisfyndet in Uppsala with my best buddy and foremost testing partner Tim, known as DrThyme. Do you reckon the deck is as strong today as it was way back then?
Well, I'd say it's certainly a stronger deck today in a vacuum. However, I think the set 1 Sabine deck kind of had a great spot in a meta where it did not kind of have that much opposition. It was very fast and there were not a lot of tools to kind of stop that onslaught. Whereas today, I mean, the deck is in a much stronger state, like I said, in a vacuum. But I'd say the rest of the decks are also better at actually stopping you, if that makes sense.
Well, let me just confirm that. Yeah. So. Hi, Kevin. Hang on. Kevin is without a doubt the most successful and prolific Swedish Sabine player. But he's a stealthy predator that prefers to stake out his prey, concealed from view, and rather not to be too heavily exposed in content like this. Is Sabine as strong in set 4 as he's always been?
Yeah, I never left. Her strength level is the same, but I feel like because the meta is so diverse now, she's in a better spot. People aren't playing the same deck, so they can't tech against only Sabine because they will face pilot decks, control decks, mid-range decks.
Oh yeah, I think most would agree. Along with Ryan, there were others that did believe in Sabine, even during those dark weeks of Jango supremacy. Frank Myers, one of the founding members of the Bothan Network, he never gave up on Sabine. He even brought her to that infamous Jango-infested Denver SQ. Surely he agrees that everyone and their mother should be on Sabine at this point. So glad to have you on, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you, Viktor.
Give me the elevator pitch. Why should I be on Sabine in set 4?
Yeah, nobody should be playing this deck. Don't play this deck. And don't sideboard for this deck. Just leave it alone. Just Sabine's nothing. Don't worry about Sabine. Just ask Will from last week.
Nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here. When I started playing Star Wars Unlimited before Set 1 came out, and I liked a lot of what Yellow Sabine was doing. So I went to the Orlando 5K, and I think I was third in Swiss, like 8-1 or something. And then I made top 8. I went X3 a few weeks ago at Denver with Yellow Sabine again. I thought it was really well positioned into Jango. It's just I didn't happen to get to play. I only played 2 Tarkentown decks all day. I built a deck to beat Tarkentown. I only got to play 2 Tarkentowns, beat them both. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough because I didn't play enough Tarkentowns. It's just the matchup, luck of the matchup that you get at big tournaments. So I mean, I play a lot of different decks, but I've always played Sabine. I won my PQ in Set 3 with Green Sabine. In Set 2, we got Poe and Wrecker, which makes Green Sabine to me the overall just a better deck than Yellow Sabine because of Poe and Wrecker and ECL combinations. It's positioned well, I think, because of ECL, and we have Timely Intervention, which was the MVP of last week's tournament, at least the final championship match. When you can surprise your opponent by altering the game state in one action, it lets higher skill players, I guess, it's a tool that higher skill players can use to win games that normally they wouldn't be able to win because you can affect the play. Someone can take the wrong play line, not anticipating what exactly you're going to be ECLing.
Not every major Sabine player would as unambiguously express their faith in the deck. Buku, certainly one of the strongest and most successful Sabine players in Europe, was a lot more hesitant when I talked to him.
I think I'm still very puzzled. I think it's one of those decks that I can never feel comfortable about. So I think my main constraint with the deck is how do you build a 50-card deck that's going to answer all of the decks that you're trying to beat. So is that we've got quite a few archetypes that are viable and they all stretch the deck in different directions. It's the composition of the deck that allows you to be competitive into the wide meta is the challenge.
So I figured, somewhat contrary to what some would have you believe, there's more to this than just here's your deck, go and win your big tournament.
Star Wars Unlimited is an incredibly pilot-dependent game. It's basically chess interlaced with Lorcana and Magic. And chess is a very high-skill game. You move the pawn in the wrong direction, you get checkmated. And so I feel like for any deck, skill is incredibly important. Slip-ups and aggro are much more punishing than a slip-up in mid-range. And so that is really what's happening. And that happens in other games like Magic, like a mid-range deck in Magic. There's a lot more forgiveness there because your cards have more impact. But in aggro, your cards need to all like domino chain together to blitz them out or beat them unexpectedly, put them in a position where they have to claim early and they lose, right? All these things happen. That doesn't always happen with like mid-range and control. Those are decks that have a little bit more give, and because their cards have more impact in the board state, typically like in theory, it's not always true that way. Because like Green Sabine's playing like Poe, which is a mid-range card, but it's using it as an aggro tool with ECL. But yeah, anyway.
So the Sabine is surprisingly a very high skill deck. I know people think of it as an aggro deck. They come with preconceptions that aggro is not high skill. This is super high skill. Sabine is a mid-range control deck masquerading as an aggro deck. And it's got a lot of tools with an ECL, a lot of great units ECL with. So it really has a lot of play lines you can find to control the board and then win in one big turn, or you've nipped at them a few times along the way, and then you get there at the end. And one of the big differentiations of players by skill level when playing this deck is in the resource decisions. At each resource step, a higher skilled player will make a better resource choice than a player who's newer to the deck or doesn't understand what is possible. And generally it's because higher skilled players do a really good job of understanding the opponent's deck and what they're wanting to do and predicting what cards they could possibly be playing.
During a Sabine match, what are the different stress points, the inflection points where you see the game turning, for better or worse?
When in general, I'd say the first 3 turns, especially kind of the first and the second turn.
So at the first turn resource, if you have initiative, you feel pretty good. You can keep almost any turn 1 play. That's fine. But if your opponent has initiative and they're playing almost any kind of yellow, it could be Spark Rebellion, it could be Bazine, you have to be able to resource in keeping 2 different first turn plays in your hand. That's an inflection point, because I'll see players get blown out by not keeping. Okay. And then on turn 2, the 3 resource turn, a lot of players make the mistake of keeping like a fleet lieutenant or a wing leader or a pilot for their ship. Like they'll keep a Chewbacca to go on a spaceship. And then because they weren't predicting or seeing how the opponent could interact with their board, now their first turn unit's dead. It's in the discard pile. So now what do you do when you can't play one of your upgrade types or a fleet lieutenant? Now you're just playing one of those, hopefully for just as a 3/3 for 3, which doesn't feel great. It's win, you can still win from that. But so a lot of higher skill Sabine players will keep another 3-drop. Maybe it's a Sabine Masterpiece, maybe it's a Cassian. They'll keep something to play in case their wing leader, fleet lieutenant, or Chewbacca pilot doesn't have anywhere to go. And it's back to one reason why I like the new Luke so good, is that in a pinch, you could just play Luke as a 3/2 if you had to on turn 2, but it's not ideal. So I think those are the first 2 inflection points of resource decisions. And then in turn 3, the 4 resource turn, your flip turn for Sabine, the problems there become, how do you dirtle? How do you waste actions so you can safely play an upgrade out of your hand? I know that a lot of opponents want to play takedown. They want to kill Sabine when she flips. They want to wait for you to put the Darksaber on Sabine and then come up with a bamboozle, or come up with, there's a lot of things they can do to interact at that point. So you have to hopefully you have a unit or 2 on the board. You have your ping ability. You have your flips. You can get 4. Usually you can get 4 actions before you have to commit to playing. So the resourcing choice there on the 4 resource turn is, if you want to play like a Darksaber or a wing leader on Sabine, you need to also keep another 4-drop like a K2SO, or something else good that you wouldn't mind. Oh, whatever's happening in the board state and the player action sequence on the opponent's side, you're able to see that, okay, it's not super safe for me to try to play this Darksaber this turn, so I'm just going to play K2 instead. So that's kind of like those 3 turns, and then the 4th turn, the 5 resource turn and on, it's really the inflection point for Sabine is, what are you doing with your ECL this game? Did you already ECL early? Sometimes that's the right move, but you're also trying to set up, how do I PO a wrecker after the turn after that?
A well-timed ECL, which kind of flips everything in your favor. Takes care of a leader, bleeds some damage to base, and then kind of just finishes the game there, I'd say.
Resourcing is really the secret, kind of like what differentiates lower skill players versus high skill players. And that's assuming you already know how to do the action economy and how to affect the board state, and the difficulty knowing, am I controlling the board? Is it time to turn the corner, race the base, just do all my damage? So those are the higher skill level thoughts I have about how to play Sabine.
And it's those stress points, situations like that it really puts pressure on Sabine, and that you have to be, cognizant about.
Yeah, so the first one is getting your turn 1 play killed. And there's 2 ways that happens. One, ambushing in, them having some sort of way to, either with initiative, they play like classic, right? Anakin Colossus with initiative. I mulligan. My only turn 1 play is Sabine. They play Sabine. I got to play Sabine. They get to kill for free. And that is super frustrating. Or if you just get ambushed by ECL or an ambush unit, Quinlan can play like the land speeder, or getting ping Tarkentowned, or Power of the Dark Side. You really need to maintain turns 1 through 4 need to be consistent, and you'll win the game. And so playing around the event-based removal, the base-based removal, and then the unit-based removal is really difficult. And I will say, I feel like Yellow Sabine has always been really good at being able to, you can never catch it. It's like, okay, you killed 2 of my ground units. Well, while you did that, I played 3 space units, and now I'm in space, and I'm totally in a different arena, and the game is completely not even where you thought it was. So that is a huge point of contention. The deck plays a decent amount of ground and space, It's not all space or all ground. It has the ability to pivot when it needs to.
Yeah, and you get actually a huge amount of HP onto the board that way. Even though it's spread over multiple units, it's really an advantage, I bet.
Yeah, which is why a lot of the units have 3 HP in my builds. Like I think Leia's like and Wing Leader are like the only units in the deck with less than 3 HP.
How do you turn around if you're falling behind with the yellow Sabine? Because one thing that keeps coming up when you talk about yellow Sabine is that you might run out of steam.
Yep. So I think the inclusion, I never was able to get Darksaber in the deck because of Jango holding it at bay in set 3. Just like, why play Darksaber when Jango can ping it down and tap it? Now, if they control all your units and you're going into your flip turn, you have Darksaber in your hand, you flip Sabine, slap a Darksaber on it, smack for 5, claim, surprise strike for 10, play for a cause. You've done 21 damage in 3 actions.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, that move is insane.
It's insane. So like that's really where, because it's 7 plus 10 plus 4. Being able to do stuff like that, it's like, oh well, you just win, I guess.
So the only really problem for that strategy would be something like Force Choke, that they could
Force Choke,
keep,
or
open.
a Village Protectors, like it
Yeah.
absorbs 14 damage of attacks. That is super annoying. But again, having that game knowledge and knowing that can happen, you just don't even play in those arenas. Like in the blue hero matchups, all space, dump, space fleet, play A-Wing into Black One, Cartel Turncoat, into 2 more space units, into Wing Leader, into Falcon Han Pilot, and you've done 30 damage and they're flipping Anakin, and you're claiming and surprise striking for like 9, Valiant Assault Ship. So just being able to just like, where do I want to be in certain matchups, knowing what these decks play? Where can I just like flood the board and they won't be able to interact unless they have events?
What do you see as the best and the worst matchups for Sabine in this meta?
Currently, I feel that the Han Green is probably the worst matchup. It is, unless you guess your answers. I mean, if they open either the Falcon, the set 1 Falcon, or the set 4 Falcon, you kind of have to answer that, I think. Especially the set 4 Falcon, if they open that and put a pilot on it in R2, like if their turn 1 play, then that will be very hard to deal with in general. You'll have to raise them on ground, and it's a yellow deck, right? They have a lot of pumps themselves, and they can go very fast. So I would say that's a tricky deck today.
Yeah. What are the best matchups? Why am I bringing Sabine?
I mean, in general, I feel like Sabine, you will roll over most control decks, usually, especially if you play well. For instance, the new Piet decks that are showing up, I don't think I have a loss against one of those so far. And also the Palps that I've been seeing. I think that Palps maybe have tweaked their decks a little now, but I still feel it's a very favorable matchup. But I think the main reason for Sabine is also you can win matches you don't have any business winning, in a sense. You can get your for a cause, I believe, and which puts you over the limit, like just top deck that one, or a Fleet Lieutenant pumping, or a Rebel Assault. I mean, even when it starts to look hopeless, I feel that you can still edge out and win with Sabine.
Yeah.
And in general, she is maybe not favored into the whole board, but she also has a good game into pretty much any deck currently, I'd say.
So the worst matchups are the blue-red hero. I know I just played a bunch of practice games with like Chris Schutz, Rodney Stubbs from his Patreon. It's a great Patreon if you want to go check out what Rodney Stubbs does. But getting him ready for practicing with him for him to play Richmond, a tournament I wasn't able to go to. He must have taken 6 or 7 out of 10 against me. It was like, if they put down the Sentinels and they keep putting down Sentinels and then they get to their restore units and then they flip and they start restoring with their leader, that's tough. It really is. Then the matchup I'm looking for, of course, is pretty much the control matchups, like the Kiras, the Piets, the stuff that people are running that are slower. They want to go to 7-8 resource turn. I'm happy with that because we're going to be done by then, I hope. The deck is, and then again, that's back to when you need for a cause to make sure you're done by then. But I'm not saying I don't lose to those decks. It's just that those are the matchups where I feel like Sabine can control the game if you know the play lines. But yeah, double blue can beat Sabine. Like double blue Iden, a really good local player of ours, made day 2 at Richmond last weekend. Benji, he was playing double blue Iden. So there are still some double blue decks out there. A double blue Yoda might be hard. It's just if they stack Sentinels with removal into restore, it's really hard. That's kind of like the pathway to beat Sabine, in my opinion.
How are you feeling right now between your decks? If you were to go to Richmond all over again, would you bring yellow or would you bring green?
I probably would bring yellow just because I think it's a lot less teched against. I think Han Pilot is the best pilot in the game. The Chewie Pilot's great, but it doesn't cheat in action. And the Han Pilot's also a rebel, just like Chewie. It can ambush. It's way more. It's a lot more flexible. And a lot of people might say, "Hey, Darksaber, right? Darksaber. There's obviously ECL Poe that's really good, but Yellow Sabine can play Darksaber too." Because what unit are you playing Darksaber on? You're playing it on your leader, and it avoids the aspect penalty. So Darksaber has been very strong. Like if you slap a Darksaber on Sabine, attack for 7, claim, surprise strike for 10. That'll end a lot of games. I think being able to flood the board is really strong with Cartel Turncoat, Leia for the tempo. The Han Pilot's very good. Being able to just slap that on a black one and attack for 5 on turn 2, and you have a 5/6 is pretty wild. But what I really like doing is what I shared, the Darksaber surprise strike for 10. Yes, Green Sabine's got Rebel Assault, but this only requires 1 unit. And sometimes it's all you have. Sometimes your opponent's controlling you down, killing your stuff, trading into it, whatever. And then on top of that, we have access to things like jamming communications, which is really not a good hand disruption card for mid-range. Spark is much better, but hey, a 1-cost hand disruption card, you'd want to play something like that in aggro because it's resource efficient and you want to kind of dump your cards out. And so jamming comms can rip out Cunning, Vigilance, Overwhelming Barrage, Resupply, Relentless Pursuit, right? Just like knowing when to play that card from the sideboard against certain decks is very pivotal in winning that matchup. And this can be done in any version of Sabine, but I think the R2 on black 1 is crazy. Just being able to get a 4/4 on turn 1 against the Han Pilot decks, any color. If I have initiative and I play black 1 and they resource and I play R2 and they play Falcon, I claim and I get to kill their Falcon instantly. And then I'm ahead on board. They sunk a card into it from their hand to resource up, and you just win the game from there. Honestly, you're just so far ahead at that point.
What kind of tricks do you have in yellow, Sabine? Because I don't think you're playing sneak attack fleet lieutenants anymore, right?
Yeah, so I'm actually playing the sneaks in the sideboard because it's only for specific matchups that I want to go fast. And I don't care as much about my units living, but it's not the go-to game plan because in some decks against like Anakin Colossus, you're never going to sneak attack, burn them down. You want your units to stick around and have some sort of recursion there. And so sneak attack is opposite of that. I think what's interesting is we have Kira to stop key plays. We have Surprise Strike to push in a ton of damage. It's just a very strong card. Still played in like every yellow deck, right? We have Leia to tap down key units, especially in the pilot meta, like deploying a unit and tempoing something down is good. And then Bamboozle just being one of the best cards in the deck still. It gets around all the pilots. It gets around pilot leaders. It gets around Darksaber in the mirror. It's just such a good card. So you have a ton of hand disruption. We have tempo. We have ambush with the Han Pilot. We have pilots. So also you have the Falcon, right? You have the Falcon, which comes in readied. Can't forget that. It's one of the best ships in the game still from set 1.
Yeah, certainly is. What cards from the new set are you making you excited for green?
From Jump to Lightspeed for green Sabine, Blue Leader has been very good. But ultimately Sabine's masterpiece.
Yeah.
Sadly, the yellow effect on it is just not good. I would have played it, but it's just not good.
No.
The other 2 colors for Green Sabine, that is by far the best card for that deck.
Out of all the old staples, is there anyone that you're skeptical about in this meta?
Yeah, I think it's A-Wing, right? A-Wing gets beaten by Blue Leader. It gets killed by Sabine Masterpiece. It kills by Falcon. And even if you stick an R2 pilot on it, it doesn't trade back. Surprisingly, Alliance X-Wing has actually been better because if you throw an R2 on it, it gets 3 power, meaning Blue Leader would die, Sabine's Masterpiece would trade. If they have a red unit out, they can ping it on the ECL attack. It's just the A-Wing not having 2 power when it comes out really makes it not as strong and really hurts the card overall because it allows them to like get a free attack into it and stuff like that. And that's by far was considered the best ship in the game. Even when Kylo's, TIE Silencer came out, people were like, A-Wing is still better because it's a rebel. And it's just not as good now, right? Because of that 1 power. I'm surprised that happened so quickly. I thought that A-Wing was still going to be dominant even into set 4, but seeing Blue Leader and Sabine's Masterpiece and other cards come out, it just gets, especially when your opponent can like play a pilot in return, and just now if I play a pilot on the A-Wing won't trade with it. That's just been frustrating for me for sure.
One thing that I would probably want to put some attention to is how much I hate the pilot mechanic in the play lines that you have to take as a Sabine. So there was a very skill-intensive play line to be able to put a Darksaber on Sabine in set 3 and not get punished by it. So you had to take the actions on the board in a way that you exhaust your opponent's actions and put them in check where you can actually play the Darksaber safely and get the attack in. This is completely different with pilots, which the element of the game that I don't really like at the moment is where you can't attack with the units on the board first. You have to put the pilot in as one of the early actions in the turn. So you are playing into a line where I'm going to present a threat. If you have an answer, you win. If you don't, I win. And it's kind of a very much a probability question at that point. Is what's the probability of my opponent having an answer rather than how do I maneuver this turn to be able to do what I want to do without being countered. As much as the pilots might be required in the Sabine deck, I do really hate the positions that they put you into where you have to present the threats into open resources that your opponent has and basically just kind of daring them to play into your threats. The problem that I had with set 3 deck, it was very reliant on playing weapons. And obviously all your opponents were prepared to counter the weapons, so you needed always to have a backup in your lines that on the 4 resource turn you can play something else if you don't feel like the weapon is the right play. So if you end up packing your deck with a lot of pilots and weapons, you'll be forced into situations where you just have to make the play. I think going back to set 3 as well, a weapon on a ground unit in turn 2 has always caused problems. Be that the lightsabers, the fallen lightsabers. I might be getting the card names wrong. I think it's either Luke lightsaber or one of the sabers that the blue decks play.
Oh yeah, that's the yellow lightsaber. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's few weapons that were very common to go tall against Sabine, and then start building efficient trades on the board and threatening the Sabine flip. So, but that kind of ability to go tall on turn 2 means that you can start potentially racing and you are very efficient with actions. So it kind of forces you into a position where you have to interact with that unit or kind of do the same thing as they are doing. So go tall and start racing, and that's the tricky part. That's my friction point at the moment with Sabine is how do we navigate that where pilots on turn 2 are very common at the moment. In terms of the mirror, I guess there's few significant main deck consideration. I'm not currently seeing any particular sideboard cards that you would require. We need to run Rebel Assaults to be able to race those decks. We're still playing the pilots. The turn 1 place is probably where you might make a decision whether you want the units with 3 attack or 3 health. So that's probably one of the first concentrations is how do you line up the turn 1 plays to be competitive into the meta, but also not lose in the mirror too much percentage points because those early ACLs on turn 1, turn 2 are a risk that you have to be playing around.
General's Blade is, I feel like they are worse in the mirror. So I feel like game 1 I lose to Darksabers because Sabine cannot remove Darksabers they have Poe, but that's it. But in mirrors, you often ECL early to stabilize for losing the die roll or something, so you don't have your ECL up, and then you have to timely Poe, which is 6 resources. Sabine mirrors doesn't go to 6 resources that often. So if someone plays a Darksaber on another unit and attack with that unit and then give Sabine the experience, it's 2 more damage just from one card. But after side, why I run Generous Blade, because I get Generous Blade plus Confiscate. It's like the easiest way to win a mirror, in my opinion, is the Saber or Upgrade, because you have to have units on board and then stall, and then the first person who plays the Saber often wins, unless you have Confiscate or Face Trooper, Fang Fighter, the removal ship. But I prefer running Confiscate and Blade, so if I get the Dream Hand, I've had it against Raikob in the semis. He played, I didn't have Janus Blade, but I had like Saber into Fleet Lieutenant, I think, so he wasted his 4 resources on a Saber, I confiscated it, and then used my remaining 3 for a buff.
So the idea is that General's Blade for 3 can be played at the flip turn together with Confiscate. That's the point.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and if you're not facing the mirror, you can play it on turn 2 against most of the heroics decks, because they don't have maybe not yellow heroic, but like Anakin and stuff, they can't remove it that easily. So you can play it on turn 2 if you don't have a good 2-drop, because like buffing one unit, so they can't, like, especially Anakin, which is quite popular in Sweden, they often play 1 force, so they can hit for 3. So if you buff your dude, they will not be able to trade well. Shams on the list, like against the Piet, the ramp decks, Bosk ramp, and obviously Han, it's a decent card. It's a rebel, which makes it good, but it not being heroic is why I keep it in the side. I'm already running like often 3 blades and 3 timelies, so I have a lot of misses from my Furakas. So that's the disappointing part, which is just red aggression and not heroic aggression. But she's a good card to have against the ramp decks.
All right, I have a pet theory. I have a hypothesis, okay? Okay, so many great players have come to Star Wars Unlimited with a background in other TCGs, okay? Using the big elephant in the room, of course, Magic the Gathering. You know, the high-skilled players in Magic like to play like control-y decks. They want to play the blue counterspell type. I'm the control player. I'm going to outplay you that way. It's because of the way the game mechanics is set up, where you get a turn and all you can do to interact with your opponent on their turn is play interrupts and things that interact. You have to build a deck in order to interact with your opponent. In Star Wars, the game design on Star Wars is far more skill based than that. Like, this game is this is the best skill game I've played of any TCG, and so when people come to our game with a control equals skill mindset and preconception, they're not realizing how skill intense playing Sabine is, and how really, as a mid-range control deck, honestly, the green version, how it really is a high skill control deck in its own way. It's just controlling what matters in this game, the board state. Like, we are like maestros of the board state in this game. And so if these high skilled players, like my friend George the Hulk Hudson himself, co-founded Bothan Network, if guys like that, if Wu on Kira, if Alex Blandon and Ian Klein, like the great Han players, you know, if all of these guys had been playing Sabine from the beginning, it would already have been banned, because it already would have had every result Boba ever had and every result Jango ever had, plus more. But because they come in with this preconception that aggro isn't skill-based, they can't play aggro, they're wrong. This is a very high-skill deck. So that's my pet hypothesis why Sabine hadn't been banned. The better players have been trying other decks, and they should be playing this.
If you like this video, please do like and subscribe and all that jazz. But you can also hear more of me talk most weeks on the Nordic Takedown podcast. Some weeks we do stream from the major tournaments here in the Nordic countries. And also there's video content dropping all the time here. Some of it will be produced by me, and I might even bring Tim along more in the future. Kevin doesn't really want to be in content like this, but as long as he keeps winning everything, I'll keep dragging him kicking and screaming into our content. Buddy, if you want it to stop, give the rest of us a chance. Buku writes some of the very best written Star Wars Unlimited content out there. You can find it on his Patreon, and you really should support him there, because if you want to develop your game, you should read his articles. Links in the description. Ryan is doing everything everywhere. You better tell us yourself, man, because I just couldn't keep track of it all.
Yeah. I have my YouTube channel. If you want to link it down below in your description of the video, Rebel Resource. And I also have a Patreon, and I'm a part of the Bothan, but I do have a Patreon where we talk about Yellow Sabine. I also talk about Quinlan. That's where like kind of the whole Poe getting into Quinlan started for a lot of the meta. And, you know, I have other decks in there as well. So lots of testing. I have VODs, I have PQ, I have competitive documents with sideboard guides, really good stuff, and a really great community.
And I would certainly be remiss if I wouldn't let Frank close out this video by plugging the largest competitive team in SWU and everything they have got going on and coming up.
Well, I mean, of course, I think our team is well known at this point. I hope. I mean, we enjoy the community you're building at Nordic Takedown, but the Bothan Network community is a free public Discord server. We are interacting with the public more now. We were in a little dark mode. The start of every set, we're of course going to be a little bit less public because we're trying to like figure out what we're doing with our decks for big tournaments. But right now we're kind of out of that mindset. We started interacting. So we have 1,400 or so people that hang out. We find games. It's better than finding like a random game on one of the online platforms because you just, the skill level is so different. But here you can find people to play with. We have some deck threads because we have a lot of great content creators that are part of our network. Like Ryan Warner from Rebel Resource. We have Carlos Yoda Killer himself, who's kind of the Cad Bane leader of the whole SWU community. You can interact with those guys. We have Chris Stubbs, I mentioned before, Chris Schutz, Rodney Stubbs. His Patreon is in there. We have Mickey D, who's a great Quinlan player and also does a lot of Sabine, has done a lot of Sabine stuff himself. But you have deck threads for all these guys. I know we have a new podcast across the network that Jonathan R. Fisher and Ian Klein, Lego Pizza, are doing. That's coming out every week. And it's really if you want competitive content, I mean, this all they're doing is they have a very small niche. It's, are you the most competitive Star Wars player there is? You'll like this podcast. They're getting deep with people. And so, yeah, come. I know my wife's channel, Blonde Sabine on YouTube. Please check out what she does. She has a lot of tournament coverage. We do some live play on there sometimes too. Yeah, those are our channels. Those are our people. Those are our network. We'd love for you guys to come find games with us. Hit me up on Discord. I'll jam some games with you, Victor, or anybody who wants to jam games. It'd be fun. Yeah, it's kind of breaking news. It's somewhat known, but well, as far as fan events like the Bothan Invitational was a huge success. The first 3v3 tournament, we gave out $10,000 in prizes that weekend, the largest prize pool ever for Star Wars Unlimited event. I think we're gonna have to do another one. I think we're gonna have another Bothan Invitational Atlanta. We're looking at mid-November, maybe. Just nothing firm yet. Nobody book a flight yet, but yeah, we're looking at maybe going bigger. We had 32 teams for this one. I think we're gonna more than double the size for the next one. We're gonna have 256 players. I think we're gonna have a $5,000 3v3 tournament, and then we're gonna have a 256 person $10,000 tournament, individuals. So yeah, that's exciting. It'll be a $15,000 weekend. It's kind of what we're nothing firm yet, but that's what we're. And if you come to our Bothan Network Discord, there's a channel for that subject. Just let me know. It'll be invite only at first, but we'll open it up to the public later after all the invited players. But if you want an invite, let me know, and I'll probably be able to get people invited who hit me up. So it's going to be exciting. Thanks for asking.
Huge thanks to Frank, Ryan, Buku, Kevin and Tim for participating in this video and helping me share all the love we have for Sabine and share their immense knowledge on the deck. That's all for me this time. May the force be with you.